She stood in that biker bar at 73 years old, hands shaking, and whispered 6 words that would change everything. My husband says we must stay quiet. Then she pulled out 73 photographs. Each one documented a beating. Each one proved 42 years of hell. And when the bikers saw what her husband had done to their disabled daughter, they made a promise. Ma'am, we're going to make sure he never touches either of you again. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next is a story you won't forget. This is Margaret Hartwell's story, and it begins on a morning like any other. The mirror doesn't lie, but Margaret Hartwell has learned to lie to it. She stands in the bathroom at 6:43 in the morning, the same time she stood here for 15,437 days. The makeup compact clicks open with a sound that's become a prayer. Foundation first pressed gently over the purple bloom, spreading across her left cheekbone. Concealer next dabbed with fingertips that know every hollow, every shadow, every place where skin has learned to break. Her hands shake. They always shake now. 73 years of life, 42 years of marriage, and her hands have forgotten how to be still. In the mirror, an old woman stares back. White hair pinned in a tight bun the way Robert likes it. Floral blouse buttoned to the collar, hiding the fingerprint bruises that circle her throat like a necklace. She practices her smile, the one she'll wear when Mrs. Webb from next door waves from her garden. The one she'll use at the grocery store when the cashier asks how she's doing. Fine, she'll say. Just fine. Same as always. My husband says we must stay quiet. The words echo in her head, Robert's voice as clear as if he were standing behind her. She glances at the bathroom door. Still closed. He's downstairs. She can hear the television, the morning news anchors discussing weather patterns and traffic delays, normal things that happen in normal lives. She finishes the makeup. Lipstick lasts a pale pink that Robert approved of in 1984. The tube is nearly empty now, worn down to a stub, but she can't buy a new one without asking. Can't buy anything without asking. The woman in the mirror looks presentable now. Looks like someone's kind grandmother. Looks like someone who volunteers at church bake sales and knows her neighbors' names. Looks like someone whose biggest worry is whether the roast will be ready by 6 o'clock. She looks like a lie. Margaret closes the compact and places it back in the exact spot on the counter where it lives. Half an inch to the left, and Robert will notice. He always notices. Day 15,438. The kitchen smells like coffee and something else. Something underneath that Margaret has never been able to wash away. Fear, maybe, the kind that soaks into walls and linoleum and curtains until it becomes part of the house itself. She cracks 3 eggs into the skillet. Robert likes them over easy, the yolk still runny, 2 strips of bacon on the side toast cut diagonally. She's made this breakfast 6,309 times. She knows because she counted once in 2012 when she thought keeping track of something might make her feel like she had control over anything at all. The eggs sizzle. Robert turns the page of his newspaper. He's 68 years old, gray hair, combed neatly, reading glasses perched on his nose. He wears a cardigan sweater, the blue one, the one that makes him look like someone's kindly grandfather. In 4 hours, he'll go to work at the factory where he's been a supervisor for 30 years. His co-workers will clap him on the back and ask about his weekend. His boss will praise his attention to detail. The company newsletter will run another story about his volunteer work at the church fundraiser. Model citizen, pillar of the community, family man. Margaret plates the eggs. Her hand trembles and a drop of grease falls onto the rim. She wipes it away quickly, but not quickly enough. Robert looks up from his paper. The kitchen goes very still. Margaret. His voice is calm. Always calm. That's what makes it worse somehow, the way he never has to raise his voice to make her stomach drop. Yes. What have I told you about presentation? I'm sorry, I'll make another plate. No. He sets down the newspaper, folds it precisely. You'll eat that one. I'll take the clean plate. She nods, switches the plates, sits down across from him with the grease-stained one. She's not hungry anyway. She's never hungry anymore. They eat in silence. The clock on the wall ticks. Outside, a car drives past. Somewhere in the house, the furnace kicks on. Normal sounds, normal morning, normal life. Robert finishes his eggs and stands. He kisses the top of her head, the gesture of a loving husband. I'll be home at 5:30, he says. Have the pot roast ready. Yes, Robert. And check on Rebecca. She needs her medication at 9. Yes, Robert. He pauses at the door, turns back. For a moment, something flickers across his face, something Margaret learned to recognize decades ago. A calculation, a measurement of her compliance. You're a good wife, Margaret, as long as you remember that everything is fine. Then he's gone. The door closes. The car starts. The garage door opens and closes. Margaret sits at the table with the grease-stained plate and doesn't move for 7 minutes. Rebecca's room is on the first floor, the den converted after the accident, after Robert pushed her. After Margaret stayed silent and let the doctors write accidental fall on the report, and let her 12-year-old daughter learn that no one was coming to save either of them. That was 30 years ago. Rebecca is 42 now. Margaret knocks gently before entering. Old habit. Rebecca has no privacy in this house, but Margaret knocks anyway, a small dignity she can still offer. Morning, Becca. Her daughter is already awake, sitting in her wheelchair by the window. She's looking out at the street, at the world she can't quite reach. The accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. The doctor said she'd never walk again. Robert said it was God's will. Margaret said nothing at all, and that silence has lived between them ever since. Morning, Mom. Rebecca's voice is flat, has been flat for 3 decades. Sometimes Margaret wonders if her daughter's voice broke the same day her spine did, if both stopped working at the same moment. Margaret sets down the medication tray. Pills in a small cup, water in a glass. Rebecca takes them without speaking. They've perfected this routine, this dance of mother and daughter who love each other but don't know how to say it anymore. How are you feeling? Fine. Any pain? Same as always. Margaret adjusts the blanket across Rebecca's lap, smooths non-existent wrinkles. Her daughter's hands are thin, too thin. There are bruises on her forearms, purple and yellow, in various stages of healing. Becca, these bruises. I bumped the door frame. You know how clumsy I am. They both know it's a lie. They both know where the bruises came from. Robert angry about something, anything, everything, taking it out on whoever is nearest. Rebecca can't run away. Rebecca hasn't been able to run away since she was 12 years old. Margaret wants to say something, wants to say she's sorry, wants to say she should have left 42 years ago, wants to say she stayed because she thought it would protect Rebecca, but all it did was trap them both. Instead, she says, I'll bring your lunch at noon. Rebecca turns back to the window. Okay, Mom. Margaret leaves the room and closes the door softly behind her. In the hallway, she leans against the wall and closes her eyes. She's 73 years old. Her daughter is 42. They are both prisoners in this house, and Margaret is the one who built the walls. The call comes at 1:15 in the afternoon. Margaret is folding laundry. Robert's shirts creased exactly the way he requires when her ancient flip phone rings. She's allowed to have a phone. She's allowed to answer it. She's allowed exactly 45 minutes away from the house for grocery shopping on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She's allowed many things as long as she remembers that they're allowances, not rights. The number on the screen is from the hospital. Her hands start shaking so badly she almost drops the phone. Hello, Mrs. Hartwell. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your daughter Rebecca was admitted to the emergency room at 12:40. You're listed as her emergency contact. The floor tilts. Margaret grabs the edge of the dryer. What happened? She has 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a concussion. She told the intake nurse she fell, but Mrs. Hartwell, we need you to come in right away. Margaret hangs up, stares at the phone in her hand, looks at the clock. Robert doesn't come home for 4 more hours. She has time. She can go to the hospital, see Rebecca, be back before 5:30. He'll never know. She grabs her purse. Her hands won't stop shaking. The car keys slip through her fingers twice before she manages to hold them. The drive to the hospital takes 11 minutes. She counts every second. The emergency room smells like antiseptic and fear. A nurse directs Margaret to room 7 through double doors past curtained beds where other people's emergencies unfold in whispered conversations and beeping machines. Rebecca's in the bed, small and broken, hooked up to monitors that beep steadily. Her face is swollen, her lips split, her right eye purple and nearly swollen shut. A young doctor stands beside the bed making notes on a tablet. She looks up when Margaret enters. Mrs. Hartwell. That's me. Is she, will she? She's stable. 3 fractured ribs, grade 2 concussion, internal bruising. We've given her pain medication. She'll need to stay overnight for observation. The doctor's eyes are careful, studying Margaret, studying the situation. Your daughter said she fell down the stairs, but Mrs. Hartwell, I've been an ER doctor for 8 years. I know what falling downstairs looks like. This doesn't look like that. Margaret's mouth goes dry. The doctor continues quieter now. These injuries, the pattern, the placement, this looks like someone kicked her. Multiple times while she was on the ground. The room spins. Margaret grabs the edge of Rebecca's bed. My daughter is clumsy, she hears herself say. She's in a wheelchair. Sometimes she transfers wrong, and Mrs. Hartwell. The doctor's voice is gentle but firm. I'm required by law to report suspected abuse. I'm going to file a report. Do you understand? Margaret nods. She doesn't trust her voice. The doctor makes another note on her tablet and leaves. Margaret sinks into the chair beside Rebecca's bed. Her daughter's eyes are closed, her breathing slow and steady from the pain medication. Margaret takes her hands so careful of the IV line and just holds it. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm so sorry, baby. Rebecca's eyes flutter open, unfocused, clouded with medication but aware. Mom, I'm here. He said, Rebecca's voice slurs. He said I spilled water on his newspaper. He got so angry, I couldn't get away fast enough. Margaret feels something crack inside her chest. I know, baby. I know. Mom, I'm scared. Of what? Rebecca's grip tightens, surprisingly strong. I'm scared that next time he'll kill me. The words hang in the air between them. Margaret opens her mouth to say it'll be okay, to say she'll talk to Robert, to say she'll make sure he never hurts Rebecca again. But they're all lies, and she's told enough lies. Instead, she says, when do they release you? The Tuesday, 3 days. 3 days, 72 hours. And then Rebecca will come home, back to the house, back to Robert, back to the cycle that's been spinning for 42 years. Margaret sits with her daughter until the visiting hours end. Rebecca falls asleep, the medication pulling her under. Margaret watches her breathe, watches the monitors track her heartbeat, watches the daughter she failed to protect sleep in a hospital bed because Margaret was too afraid to be brave. She drives home in silence. Robert is in his chair when she walks in at 4:57. Early, he's home early. Where were you, Tom? Margaret's heart hammers. The hospital, they called. Rebecca had an accident. Robert doesn't look up from his magazine. She's always having accidents. Clumsy girl. When's she coming home? Tuesday. Good. Make sure she knows to be more careful. I don't like people thinking we can't take care of our own daughter. He turns the page of his magazine. Margaret stands in the doorway, purse still on her shoulder, keys still in her hand. Robert, maybe we should talk about what? His voice hasn't changed, still calm, still even. But there's something underneath it, a current of warning. Margaret knows this current, has learned to read it the way sailors read the sea. Nothing, she says. I'll start dinner. That night, Margaret lies awake in bed beside her husband of 42 years. Robert snores softly, peaceful, a man with a clear conscience. Margaret stares at the ceiling and counts. 15,438 days of marriage. 15,438 days of staying quiet. 15,438 days of believing that silence was the same thing as survival. At 2:17 in the morning, she gets up, moves quietly through the dark house to Rebecca's room. The wheelchair sits empty by the window. The bed is neatly made. Margaret sits on the edge of the bed and opens the drawer of Rebecca's nightstand. Inside, beneath old magazines and unused greeting cards, is a journal. Margaret has seen Rebecca writing in it for years, but has never looked inside. She opens it now. The first page is dated 6 months ago. Mom, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Maybe I'm in the hospital again. Maybe worse. I need you to know something. I don't blame you anymore for staying. I understand fear. I've lived with it my whole life. But I blame you for teaching me that love looks like this. That this is what I deserve. That silence is survival. I forgive you, Mom, I do. But I can't forgive myself for becoming you. For accepting this. For believing that this is all we get. Please, please don't let this be all we get. If you're reading this and I'm still alive, please be brave. Not for you, for me. Show me what bravery looks like. Because I've forgotten. I love you, Becca. Margaret reads the entry 3 times, then she closes the journal, puts it back in the drawer, and walks to the bathroom. She stands in front of the mirror again. No makeup this time. Just her face bare and honest in the harsh light. 73 years old, white hair coming loose from its pins. Bruises fading to yellow on her cheekbone. Lines around her eyes from 42 years of flinching. My husband says we must stay quiet. But Rebecca is in a hospital bed. And in 3 days she'll come home. And Robert will hurt her again. And again. And again. Until one day he doesn't stop. Margaret grips the edge of the sink. She thinks about her daughter's words. Show me what bravery looks like. She thinks about 42 years of silence. She thinks about the fact that at 73, she probably has maybe 10 years left, if she's lucky. 10 years to show Rebecca that there's another way to live. 10 years to teach her daughter what she should have learned 42 years ago. That silence isn't survival. That love doesn't look like this. That it's never too late to be brave. Margaret looks at the woman in the mirror and makes a decision that will change everything. Tomorrow she will ask for help. The next morning, Margaret wakes before the alarm. Robert is still asleep, his breathing deep and even. She slips out of bed, dresses in the dark, and goes downstairs. She makes breakfast, eggs over easy bacon toast cut diagonally. The routine is muscle memory by now. Robert comes down at 7, takes his seat, reads his paper. Everything is normal. Everything is the same as it's been for 15,439 days. Except Margaret. She's different now. Something shifted in the night, some tectonic plate deep inside her that's been dormant for 4 decades. She can feel it moving, settling into a new position. Robert leaves for work at 7:40, kisses the top of her head, reminds her to have pot roast ready at 5:30. The door closes. The car starts. He's gone. Margaret stands in the kitchen for 5 full minutes just breathing. Then she walks next door. Lorraine Webb is 75 years old, and a widow has lived in the house next to the Hartwells for 33 years. She's watering her roses when Margaret crosses the lawn. Morning, Margaret. Beautiful day, isn't it? Lorraine, can I talk to you? Something in Margaret's voice makes Lorraine set down the watering can. Of course, dear. Come inside. They sit at Lorraine's kitchen table. The house smells like coffee and cinnamon rolls. Normal smells, safe smells. Margaret opens her mouth and nothing comes out. Lorraine waits. She's a patient woman, Lorraine. Has learned patience the way people who live long enough eventually do. I heard, Lorraine says finally, about Rebecca, the ambulance yesterday. Margaret's eyes fill with tears. Margaret, I need to tell you something. Lorraine's hands shake as she pours coffee. I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. They gave me maybe 2 months. Oh, Lorraine, I'm so... Let me finish. Lorraine sits down heavily. I've lived in this house for 33 years, and for 33 years I've heard things through the walls, screaming, crying, thuds that made my dishes rattle. I heard it all, Margaret, every bit of it. Margaret can't look at her. I called the police once, back in 2001. They came, talked to Robert, talked to you. You told them everything was fine. They left, and I never called again. Lorraine reaches across the table, takes Margaret's hand. I'm dying, and do you know what my biggest regret is? Not the cancer. Not that I'll never see my grandchildren graduate college. My biggest regret is that I heard you screaming for 33 years and I stayed quiet. I let fear make me an accomplice. Tears stream down Margaret's face. I can't undo that, Lorraine continues. But you can. You still have time. Don't die with the regret of staying silent. Don't let Rebecca die with it either. She slides an envelope across the table. Margaret opens it. Inside is $200 in cash. I don't need it where I'm going, Lorraine says. Use it. Leave. Fight back. Do what I never did. Margaret stares at the money. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just have to remember. Margaret drives to the public library. She's allowed to go to the library. Robert approves of reading as long as it's nothing that gives her ideas. The computer lab is empty except for a teenage boy playing video games in the corner. Margaret sits at a terminal and stares at the screen. She's never used the internet. Robert has a computer at home, but she's not allowed to touch it. She types slowly, hunting and pecking. Domestic violence help. Hundreds of results appear. Hotlines, shelters, legal aid, stories. So many stories of women who left, women who survived, women who found their voices. Margaret reads for 2 hours. One article catches her eye. Local biker club helps woman escape abusive husband. The piece is from 6 months ago about a motorcycle club called the Iron Ghosts that helped a woman and her children disappear when the courts failed to protect them. Margaret reads it 3 times. The article mentions Riley's Roadhouse. She knows where that is. 3.2 miles from her house. She's never been inside, has driven past it 100 times and looked away because places like that aren't for women like her. Except maybe they are. Maybe places like that are exactly for women like her. She writes down the address on a scrap of paper and puts it in her purse. At home, she cleans the kitchen, makes the pot roast, sets the table. Everything normal. Everything the same. But she keeps touching the piece of paper in her purse, the address proof that there might be another way. At 4:30, Margaret's phone rings. Mrs. Hartwell, this is Dr. Voss from Mercy General. I wanted to update you on Rebecca's condition. Is she okay? Physically, she's recovering well. But Mrs. Hartwell, I found something concerning when reviewing her medical history. Rebecca has been to the emergency room 17 times in the past 12 years. 17 times. And every single time the injuries are consistent with assault, not accidents. Margaret sits down hard. Dr. Voss continues. I've filed a mandatory abuse report with the state. Someone from Adult Protective Services will be contacting you. But I need to ask you directly. Is someone hurting your daughter? Margaret's throat closes. Mrs. Hartwell. My husband says we must stay quiet. The words come out before she can stop them. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. I understand, Dr. Voss says finally, but Mrs. Hartwell, Rebecca said something while she was on pain medication. She said she's afraid the next time will kill her. And I believe her. Margaret hangs up, sits at the kitchen table with her hands pressed against her mouth to keep the sobs inside. The pot roast timer dings. She stands, checks the roast. It's perfect. She sets it on the counter and looks at the clock. 5:15. Robert will be home in 15 minutes. Margaret looks at the pot roast, looks at the table set for dinner, looks at the life she's built out of silence and submission and fear. Then she looks at her purse where the address to Riley's Roadhouse waits on a scrap of paper. 3.2 miles. She's never walked more than a mile from her house alone in 42 years. But Rebecca is in a hospital bed, and in 2 days she'll come home, and Robert will hurt her again. And Margaret is 73 years old, and if she doesn't do something now, she'll die having never done anything at all. She picks up her purse. She walks to the door. She opens it. And for the first time in 15,439 days, Margaret Hartwell leaves her house without permission. The walk is 3.2 miles. Margaret knows this because she's measured it in her head a dozen times since leaving the library. 3.2 miles, approximately 64 minutes of walking, approximately 3,840 steps. She's been gone for 7 minutes and her phone has rung 4 times. Oh, Robert, she doesn't answer. The sidewalk stretches ahead of her. Houses give way to businesses. Businesses give way to industrial buildings. The nice part of town fades into the part where chain-link fences line the streets and bars cover windows. Margaret keeps walking. Her feet hurt. She's wearing the sensible flats Robert approves of, not meant for long distances. A blister forms on her left heel. She ignores it. 15 minutes and her phone rings again. This time she answers. Where are you? Robert's voice is still calm, but she can hear the edge underneath. I came home, and you're not here. The roast is sitting on the counter. Where are you, Margaret? I had to go out. Go out where you know the rules. You don't leave without telling me. I had to take care of something. Well, care of what, Margaret? You come home right now. She looks ahead. Still 2.4 miles to go. I'll be home when I'm done. She hangs up. Her hands are shaking so violently she can barely hold the phone. She turns it off completely and keeps walking. 37 minutes. The sun is starting to set, painting the sky orange and purple. Beautiful colors. Margaret can't remember the last time she watched a sunset. Her phone is off, but she imagines it ringing. Imagines Robert's anger building with each unanswered call. Imagines what will happen when she finally goes home. If she goes home. The thought stops her dead in the middle of the sidewalk. If she goes home. She's never thought it before. Never let herself think it. Home was inevitable, like gravity, like breathing. You don't question going home. But standing here on a cracked sidewalk in the fading light, Margaret realizes something. She doesn't have to go back. The thought is so foreign, so impossible, that she actually laughs. It comes out strange and broken, but it's a laugh. She doesn't have to go back. 51 minutes. Her feet are screaming. The blister on her heel has burst. She can feel blood in her shoe. She keeps walking. Riley's Roadhouse appears at the end of the block. It's exactly what she expected. Low-slung building, dark windows, motorcycles lined up out front like steel soldiers. 11 of them by her count. Harley-Davidsons, mostly chrome, glinting in the last light of day. The door is painted black. No windows. A sign above says, "Members and guests only." Margaret stands across the street looking at it. This is insane. She's a 73-year-old woman who's about to walk into a biker bar and ask for help from people she's never met. People who have no reason to believe her, no reason to help her, no reason to risk anything for a stranger. She should turn around, go home, apologize to Robert, cook him a new dinner, accept whatever punishment he decides is appropriate. That's what the old Margaret would do, the Margaret from 15,439 days ago. But that Margaret is gone. This Margaret, the one standing here with bloody feet and a turned-off phone, and 42 years of silence screaming inside her, this Margaret is new. And this Margaret is going to walk through that door. She crosses the street. Each step feels like walking through concrete. She reaches the door, puts her hand on the handle. Inside, she can hear music, voices, laughter, life happening without fear. Margaret thinks about Rebecca in the hospital bed. Thinks about Lorraine dying with regrets. Thinks about the woman in the mirror this morning who looked like a lie. She pulls open the door. The music hits her first. Something by Lynyrd Skynyrd, loud enough to feel in her chest. Then the smell, leather and motor oil and decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of cleaning could ever erase. And then the silence. Every person in the bar turns to look at her. 11 men, some young, some old, all wearing leather vests with patches that say Iron Ghosts MC. They stare at this elderly woman in a floral blouse and sensible shoes, standing in their doorway like she materialized from another dimension. Margaret's courage wavers. This was a mistake. She should leave. She should, "Ma'am, you okay?" The voice comes from a man at the bar. Late 50s gray streaking through dark hair, a scar along his jawline. His eyes are kind despite the rough exterior. Margaret's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. The man slides off his bar stool, walks over slowly. Non-threatening, the way you approach a frightened animal. "You need us to call someone." Margaret shakes her head, forces words up through her tight throat. "My husband says we must stay quiet." The bar goes completely silent. Even the jukebox seems to lower its volume. The man's expression changes. Something flickers in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or memory. "Why don't you come sit down?" he says gently. "Take your time." He gestures to a booth in the corner. Margaret walks to it on shaking legs. The man brings her a glass of water. Her hands tremble so badly when she lifts it that water sloshes over the rim. 3 other men approach. One in his 70s, white-haired and scarred. One younger, maybe 35, with worried eyes. One in his 40s, watchful and still. "Ma'am, my name is Declan," says the first man. "People call me Anvil. This is Wrench Dodge and Doc." They pull up chairs. Wait. Margaret stares at the water glass. She's been sitting here for 3 minutes and hasn't said anything. "Take your time," Wrench says. His voice is rough, graveled from decades of smoking, but not unkind. "We got nowhere to be." Margaret closes her eyes, opens them. "My name is Margaret Hartwell. I'm 73 years old. I've been married for 42 years. She pauses. They wait. "My husband beats me. He beats our daughter. He's been doing it since she was born. And I've never told anyone, not really. Not in a way that mattered. The words once started won't stop. My daughter's in the hospital right now. He kicked her until he broke her ribs. And in 2 days she'll come home and he'll do it again." And one of these times he's going to kill her. Margaret reaches into her purse with shaking hands, pulls out an envelope. Inside are 73 Polaroid photographs. She's been taking them secretly for 15 years, documenting what Robert does when no one is watching. She spreads them across the table. Bruises, black eyes, broken fingers, split lips, burns, cuts. A visual catalog of 42 years of marriage. The men look at the photos. Their faces don't change, but something in the air shifts. My daughter Rebecca is 42 years old, Margaret continues. When she was 12, she tried to stop my husband from choking me. He pushed her down the stairs. She's been in a wheelchair ever since. Her voice breaks, but she keeps going. I tried to leave once, in 1998. I called the police. They came. My husband was so calm, so reasonable. He showed them the retirement account in his name, the house deed in his name, explained that I had episodes, sometimes got confused. They believed him. They told me to stop wasting their time. I tried to kill him once. In 2007, put sleeping pills in his coffee. 20 of them. He survived. Spent 3 days in the hospital. When he came home, he beat me so badly I was in intensive care for 2 weeks. Told the doctors I fell down the stairs. Margaret looks at each man in turn. I'm not here to be saved. I'm 73 years old. My life is mostly over, but my daughter is 42. She deserves the years I wasted. She deserves a chance. She pulls out one more piece of paper. A life insurance policy. I found this yesterday. My husband has policies on both of us, $500,000 each. He's planning to kill us and collect the money. I know it sounds paranoid, but I know. I've lived with this man for 42 years. I know how he thinks. The table is silent. Anvil speaks first. Why come to us? Because I read an article. 6 months ago, you helped a woman leave her husband. The police investigated, but nothing happened. You made her disappear. That woman had evidence, Anvil says carefully. Police records, hospital reports, a paper trail. I have 17 hospital visits for my daughter in 12 years, all explained away as accidents. She pulls out more papers, medical records she's been collecting secretly. I have my own records. Broken wrist in 1998, concussion in 2003, fractured collarbone in 2009. All falls, all clumsy me, all Robert standing beside the hospital bed explaining how unfortunate it is that his wife is so accident-prone. Doc, the quiet one, finally speaks. Ma'am, with all due respect, why now? Why after 42 years? Margaret's eyes fill with tears. Because my daughter wrote me a letter. She keeps it in her nightstand in case something happens to her. It says she forgives me for staying. But she can't forgive me for teaching her that this is what love looks like. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm 73 years old. If I'm lucky, I have 10 more years. 10 years to show my daughter what I should have shown her 42 years ago. That this isn't love. That silence isn't survival. That it's never too late to be brave. Margaret looks at Anvil directly. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to help me save myself. The men exchange glances. Some silent communication passes between them. Anvil leans forward. Ma'am, what exactly are you asking for? Help me get my daughter out of that hospital before my husband picks her up Tuesday. Help me gather evidence of what he's really done. And help me confront him. Confronting an abuser is dangerous, Doc says. Living with him is dangerous. At least this way I'm choosing the danger instead of having it chosen for me. Wrench speaks up. I knew a woman once. She waited too long. Her husband killed her before she could leave. I've spent 40 years wishing she'd asked for help sooner. Anvil drums his fingers on the table, thinking. We have rules, he says finally. We don't start trouble. We don't insert ourselves into family business without good reason. And we sure as hell don't do anything that'll land us in prison. Margaret's heart sinks. But, Anvil continues, we also don't turn away from people who need help, especially not 73-year-old women who walk 3 miles to ask for it. Hope flickers. Here's what I can do, Anvil says. We'll help you get your daughter from the hospital. We'll help you gather evidence. We'll make sure you and your daughter have somewhere safe to go. But Mrs. Hartwell, the confrontation, the standing up to him, that has to be you. We can be there for backup, but your voice has to be louder than ours. Understand? Margaret nods. And you need to understand something else. Once you start this, there's no going back. You can't change your mind halfway through. You can't decide it's easier to stay. Are you prepared for that? Margaret thinks about Rebecca's letter, about Lorraine's regrets, about 15,439 days of silence. I'm prepared. Anvil extends his hand. Margaret shakes it. His grip is firm but careful. Then we're with you. Margaret's phone has been off for 93 minutes. She knows because that's how long it's been since she left the house. 93 minutes of freedom. 93 minutes of not asking permission. 93 minutes of being brave. She's sitting in a booth at Riley's Roadhouse, surrounded by 4 bikers who have just agreed to help her escape 42 years of hell, and she feels something she hasn't felt in so long, she'd forgotten what it was called. Hope. First things first, Anvil says, pulling out a small notebook. Your daughter is being released Tuesday. That's 3 days from now. Where is she now? Mercy General, room 7 in the recovery wing. And your husband? Robert Hartwell, 68 years old, works as a supervisor at Millbrook Factory. He'll be there until 5:30 Monday through Friday. Doc makes notes. Does he have any connections? Police judges. Anyone who might interfere, Margaret thinks. He plays poker with some men from the courthouse. Judge Blackwood, I think. And he golfs with the deputy chief of police. The men exchange looks. Connections make this harder, Dodge says, but not impossible. Anvil turns to Margaret. You mentioned evidence. What do you have access to? Robert has an office at the factory. I have keys. He doesn't know I made copies years ago. What's in the office? Financial records. He's been embezzling from the company. I don't know how much, but I've seen statements, offshore accounts, falsified invoices. Wrench whistles low. Embezzlement is federal. That's serious time. There's more, Margaret says quietly. She pulls out one more envelope from her purse. Inside are printed emails. Robert has a girlfriend, Denise Reynolds, 24 years old. She's pregnant. He's been renting an apartment for her 15 miles from our house. She spreads the emails across the table. He told her he's divorced, that his wife died of cancer 5 years ago, that our daughter is actually his sister who's mentally ill and lives in a care facility. Anvil reads one of the emails, his jaw tightening. How did you get these? He leaves his laptop open sometimes, thinks I'm too stupid to use a computer. I've been taking photos of the screen with an old camera for 6 months, building a file. Doc looks at her with something like admiration. You've been planning this? Not consciously. I started documenting things, in case I ever found the courage to use them. You found it, Anvil says simply. Margaret's hands are still shaking, but less now. What do we do first? First, we need to get you somewhere safe tonight. You can't go home. Not now that he knows you left without permission. The thought of not going home sends a spike of fear through Margaret's chest. He'll be so angry. Let him be angry at an empty house, Wrench says. Better than angry at you. But my things, my medications. We'll get them, Anvil says. Later, when it's safe. Right now we need you away from him. Margaret realizes he's right. She can't go back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Where will I go, Shame? We have a place. Farmhouse about 30 miles out. We use it for situations like this. It's safe, off the grid. He won't find you there. Margaret nods slowly. Okay. What about Rebecca? We can't leave her in the hospital. Robert visits every night. If he realizes I'm gone, we'll move on Rebecca tonight, Anvil says. Doc, you take that. You've got medical background. Go to the hospital, explain the situation to her doctor. Get her moved to a different room under a different name if possible. Doc nods. On it. Dodge, you and Wrench scope out the factory. Figure out when we can get into that office. We need those financial records. They nod. Anvil looks at Margaret. And you need to decide something right now. When you confront your husband, what do you want the outcome to be? Margaret blinks. What do you mean? Do you want him arrested? Do you want him publicly exposed? Do you want him to just leave and never come back? You need to know what victory looks like for you. Margaret has never thought about victory, has never thought she was allowed to have it. I want him in prison, she says slowly. I want everyone to know what he really is. I want him to feel as powerless as he made me feel. Then that's what we'll make happen. Margaret's phone, still off, sits on the table between them. She stares at it. He's called me 47 times today. I counted before I turned it off. Good, Anvil says. Let him call, let him wonder, let him feel what it's like when someone he controls disappears. For the first time in 42 years, Margaret Hartwell smiles. Really smiles. It feels strange on her face, like using muscles that have atrophied. When do we start? We already have. The farmhouse sits 28 miles outside of town, hidden behind a wall of oak trees that have been standing longer than Margaret has been alive. The driveway is unpaved gravel crunching under the tires of Anvil's truck as they pull up to a structure that looks like it's been forgotten by time itself. 2 stories, white paint peeling in long strips, a porch that sags in the middle, windows with actual curtains, not the heavy drapes Robert insisted on to keep neighbors from seeing in. Margaret sits in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, watching this place that will be her sanctuary or her prison, depending on how the next few days unfold. It's not much, Anvil says, turning off the engine. But it's safe. No one knows about this place except the club. Your husband could hire every private investigator in the state, and they wouldn't find you here. Margaret nods. She's been silent for the entire drive, processing the enormity of what she's done. She left. She actually left. After 15,439 days, she walked out the door and didn't come back. The panic hasn't hit yet, but she can feel it circling. Waiting, inside the farmhouse smells like dust and old wood and something else. Freedom, maybe. The kind that comes from being in a space where no one is watching your every movement, counting your every breath, measuring your compliance. The living room has furniture from 3 different decades. A couch with floral upholstery, 2 recliners that don't match, a coffee table scarred with water rings and cigarette burns. Everything is clean despite the age. Someone cares for this place. Kitchen's through there, Anvil points. Bathroom upstairs, second door on the right. Bedrooms on both floors. Take whichever one feels right. Margaret sets down her purse. It contains 73 Polaroids, $200 from Lorraine, her medication bottles, and a lifetime of fear condensed into a small leather bag. There's food in the fridge, not fancy, but it'll keep you fed. Phone number for the clubhouse is on the counter. You need anything, you call. Thank you, Margaret whispers. Anvil studies her for a moment. You okay being alone tonight? Is she? Margaret doesn't know. She's never been alone. Not really. Even before Robert, she lived with her parents, then college roommates, then Robert. 73 years on Earth, and she's never spent a single night by herself. I'll be fine, she says, because what else can she say? Anvil doesn't look convinced, but he nods. Doc's at the hospital now. He'll call when he has news about your daughter. Try to rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He leaves. The truck engine fades into the distance. And then there's nothing but silence. Margaret stands in the middle of the living room and listens to it. No television blaring news. No Robert's footsteps overhead. No sound of Rebecca's wheelchair on the hardwood floors. Just silence, and the old house settling around her and her own breathing. She walks through the rooms slowly. Kitchen with checkered linoleum and a refrigerator that hums. Dining room with a table that seats 8. Bathroom with a clawfoot tub and mismatched towels. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms. She chooses the smallest one in the back with a window that overlooks the oak trees. The bed has a handmade quilt, the kind someone's grandmother stitched together from fabric scraps. Margaret sits on the edge of it. Her phone is still off. She takes it out of her purse, stares at it, turns it on. 83 missed calls, 67 voicemails, 42 text messages. All Robert. She doesn't listen to the voicemails, doesn't read the texts, just looks at the numbers, climbing evidence of his rage building with each unanswered attempt. The phone rings in her hand. Robert. Again. Margaret's thumb hovers over the answer button. 42 years of conditioning screams at her to answer it, to apologize, to explain, to submit. She declines the call. The phone rings again immediately. She turns it off, sets it on the nightstand and stares at it like it might explode. Then she lies back on the bed, still fully clothed, and closes her eyes. For the first time in 15,439 days, Margaret Hartwell falls asleep without fear. She wakes to her phone ringing. 6:47 a.m. The screen shows Doc's number. Hello, Mrs. Hartwell, it's Quincy Brennan. Doc, I'm at the hospital. Margaret sits up instantly awake. Is Rebecca okay? She's fine, better than fine. I spoke with her doctor last night, Dr. Voss. She's been concerned about Rebecca's injury pattern for a while. When I explained the situation, she was more than willing to help. Help how? Rebecca's been moved to a private room on the fourth floor under the name Rebecca Wilson. Hospital records still show her discharge date as Tuesday, but she'll actually be released today. We're getting her out before your husband can visit tonight. Margaret's heart pounds. Today? But where will she go? She needs medical care, physical therapy. We've arranged for a visiting nurse, woman named Carol. She's worked with the club before on situations like this. She'll come to the farmhouse twice a day. Rebecca will be safe, Mrs. Hartwell. I promise you that. Does Rebecca know about any of this? There's a pause. That's actually why I'm calling. She needs to hear it from you. She's scared, Margaret, confused. She needs her mother to tell her this is real. Margaret looks at the clock. I'll be there in an hour. The hospital looks different in the morning light. Less like a place of emergencies and more like a place where healing happens. Margaret walks through the main entrance with her head up, something she hasn't done in longer than she can remember. The fourth floor is quieter than the emergency wing. A nurse directs her to room 412 without asking questions. Dr. Voss must have prepared the staff. Rebecca is sitting up in bed when Margaret enters. Her face is still swollen bruises, dark purple against pale skin, but her eyes are alert, sharp, watching her mother with an expression Margaret can't quite read. Mom. Hi, baby. They stare at each other across the hospital room. So much unsaid between them, it could fill volumes. Rebecca speaks first. The doctor said you left, that you're not going back. Margaret nods. I'm not. Where did you go? Somewhere safe, somewhere he can't find us. Rebecca's jaw tightens. He's going to be so angry, Mom. You don't understand what he'll do when he realizes I understand perfectly. Margaret walks closer, sits in the chair beside the bed. I've understood for 42 years. That's the problem. I understood, and I stayed anyway. So why leave now? The question hangs between them. Why now? Why not 30 years ago when Rebecca was pushed down the stairs? Why not 20 years ago or 10 years ago or yesterday? Margaret takes Rebecca's hand, carefully mindful of the IV line. Because I read your letter. Rebecca's eyes widen. You went in my drawer. You said if something happened to you, something happened. You're in a hospital bed because your father kicked you until your ribs broke. That counts. Tears well in Rebecca's eyes. I didn't mean for you to. You said you forgive me for staying. But you can't forgive me for teaching you this is what love looks like. Margaret's voice breaks. You're right. I did teach you that. And I can't undo 42 years of lessons. But I can teach you something new. What? That it's never too late to leave. That silence doesn't equal survival. That love doesn't leave bruises. Rebecca stares at their joined hands. I'm scared, Mom. Me too, baby. I've been scared for 42 years, but I'm more scared of dying without ever fighting back. I'm more scared of you dying in that house because I was too afraid to save either of us. Where will we go? There's a farmhouse. It's safe. There are people helping us. Good people. Bikers, Rebecca says, not a question. Yes. You went to a biker bar and asked for help. I did. A laugh bubbles up from Rebecca, sharp and slightly hysterical. My 73-year-old mother went to a biker bar. I walked 3 miles in shoes that gave me blisters. I turned off my phone even though your father called 83 times. I slept in a strange bed in a strange house and didn't ask anyone's permission. Rebecca's laughter turns to tears. I've been waiting my whole life for you to do this. I know, I'm sorry it took so long. What happens now? Margaret squeezes her daughter's hand. Now you get discharged. Now we disappear before your father realizes we're gone, and now we start teaching each other what brave looks like. Rebecca nods slowly. Okay, okay. But Mom, yes, I'm terrified. Good, so am I. Let's be terrified together. They release Rebecca at noon. Dr. Voss handles the paperwork personally, marking her discharge as Tuesday on the official records, while actually processing it Saturday. A loophole that gives them 3 days head start before Robert realizes she's gone. Doc wheels Rebecca out through a service exit where Anvil waits with his truck. They lift her carefully into the back seat. She's so thin, so fragile. Margaret remembers when she was born 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect and whole and full of possibility. Look what we did to her, Margaret thinks. Look what I let happen. The drive to the farmhouse is silent. Rebecca stares out the window at a world she hasn't seen much of. Most of her life has been spent inside that house, trapped by a body that won't work and a father who won't stop. When they pull up to the farmhouse, Rebecca's eyes widen. This is it. This is it, Anvil confirms. They get Rebecca inside, set her up in the downstairs bedroom. It's already been modified. A hospital bed, grab bars in the attached bathroom, a wheelchair that's newer and better than the one she has at home. How did you, Rebecca starts. We've been doing this a long time, Anvil says simply. You're not the first person who needed a safe place to heal. Carol, the nurse, arrives 20 minutes later. She's 60 kind-faced moves with the efficiency of someone who's seen everything and been surprised by nothing. She examines Rebecca with gentle hands, checks her ribs, her vitals, her medication levels. You're healing well, Carol says, but you need rest, real rest. Not the kind where you're listening for footsteps. Rebecca's eyes fill with tears. Carol pats her hand. I'll be here twice a day, morning and evening. Anything you need, anything at all, you tell me. Understood? Rebecca nods. When Carol leaves, mother and daughter are alone in the farmhouse. Margaret makes tea in the kitchen that doesn't belong to her, in a house where no one is timing how long it takes, where no one is critiquing the temperature or the strength or the way she holds the cup. She brings it to Rebecca's room. They sit together in silence that feels different than the silence at home. This silence has air in it, space to breathe. Mom, Rebecca says finally, I need to tell you something. Margaret waits. It wasn't just the hitting. Dad, Rebecca starts again. When I was a teenager, after the accident, when I couldn't walk anymore, he would come into my room at night. The teacup trembles in Margaret's hands. He said I was useless now, that no man would ever want me, that I should be grateful he still paid attention to me at all. And I believed him. I thought I was broken and worthless, and that what he did was all I deserved. Margaret sets down the tea before she drops it. Rebecca, I never told you because I thought you knew. I thought you heard him come into my room, and you chose not to stop it, just like you chose not to stop everything else. The words are knives. Margaret feels each one. I didn't know, she whispers. I swear to God, Rebecca, I didn't know. Would it have mattered? Would you have left if you knew? The question sits between them. Would she have? Margaret wants to say yes, wants to believe that she would have drawn the line there, that sexual abuse of her disowned daughter would have been the thing that finally made her brave. But she doesn't know, and that uncertainty is its own kind of hell. I don't know, Margaret says honestly. I'd like to think I would have. But I've been lying to myself for 42 years. I don't trust my own answers anymore. Rebecca nods slowly. At least that's honest. I'm trying to be honest, for the first time. They sit with that for a while. Dr. Voss did a rape kit, Rebecca says quietly. She found evidence. DNA. She's filed a report with the state police, not the local ones. She said local police might protect him because of his connections. Margaret feels something cold settle in her stomach. Good, that's good. More evidence. Mom, when this all comes out, when people know what he did to me, to both of us, it's going to be ugly. They're going to ask why we stayed, why we didn't report it sooner, why we let it happen. Let it happen, Margaret repeats, like we had a choice. They won't see it that way. They'll see two women who stayed for decades. They'll blame us. Then let them blame us. I've spent 42 years living for other people's opinions. I'm done with that. Rebecca looks at her mother like she's seeing a stranger. Who are you? Margaret thinks about that. I don't know yet, but I'm trying to find out. That evening, Anvil calls. We're going into the factory tonight. Your husband works late on Saturdays. Until 9, Margaret confirms. He likes to use the weekend overtime. Says it gives him peace and quiet. Good. Wrench and Dodge will handle it. They'll photograph everything in his office. Financial records, emails, anything that can be used as evidence. Be careful. Robert is paranoid. He has cameras. We know. Dodge used to work private security. He knows how to avoid cameras. After the call, Margaret sits on the porch steps and watches the sun set through the oak trees. The sky bleeds orange and pink and purple colors she never took time to notice before. Her phone rings. Robert. She stopped counting how many times. This time she answers. Margaret. His voice is ice. Where are you? Somewhere safe. She performed the exam. She's already filed a report with the state police. Not the local ones, Robert. The ones your golf buddy doesn't control. Margaret, you listen to me very carefully. No, you listen to me. For 42 years I listened. I obeyed. I stayed quiet. I'm done listening. I'm done obeying, and I'm never being quiet again. She hangs up. Her hands are shaking so violently she drops the phone. It clatters on the porch steps. She stares at it like she can't believe what just happened. She hung up on him. She told him no. She threatened him. The panic hits, then delayed but devastating. What has she done? He'll come after her. He'll find her. He'll kill her for this. The phone rings again. Robert. She doesn't answer. It keeps ringing, 17 times, then it stops. Margaret sits on the porch steps until full dark, waiting for headlights to appear through the trees for Robert to somehow magically know where she is and come to drag her back. But the driveway stays empty. The night stays quiet. And slowly, very slowly, Margaret's breathing returns to normal. Inside, Rebecca is asleep. Margaret checks on her, adjusts her blankets, and feels the weight of 42 years of failure pressing down on her shoulders. I'm sorry, she whispers to her sleeping daughter. I'm so sorry for all of it. Rebecca's eyes flutter open. Mom, I didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't really asleep, too scared to sleep. Margaret sits on the edge of the bed. Me too. Did he call? Yes. What did you say? I told him no. Rebecca's eyes widen. You told Dad no. I hung up on him. A laugh escapes Rebecca, sharp and disbelieving. I've never heard you tell him no. Not once in my entire life. I've never said it before. They sit together in the darkness. Mom, what if we can't do this? What if we're not strong enough? Then we fail, but at least we'll fail trying. That's more than we've done in 42 years. Rebecca reaches for her mother's hand. I'm glad you read my letter. Me too, baby. Me too. Sunday morning arrives with rain. Margaret wakes to the sound of it drumming on the roof, a sound that would have sent her into panic at home. Rain meant Robert would be stuck inside all day, would be watching her, criticizing her, finding fault with everything. Here, rain just means rain. She makes coffee in the kitchen. Real coffee, strong, the way she likes it, but never made because Robert preferred it weak. Her phone has 63 new missed calls from Robert. She deletes the notifications without listening. Anvil calls at 8. We got everything. Everything. Financial records proving embezzlement to the tune of $340,000 over 12 years. Emails to his girlfriend. Bank statements from offshore accounts. Your husband has been stealing from Millbrook factory since 2012. Margaret sits down hard. $340,000. Federal crime. That's serious prison time, even without the abuse charges. Did you get caught? The cameras. Dodge is good at what he does. We were in and out in 17 minutes. Left everything exactly as we found it. Your husband won't know we were there. Relief floods through her. What happens now? Now we compile everything. Photos of your injuries, Rebecca's medical records, the rape kit results, the financial crimes, the girlfriend. We build a case so airtight that his connections won't matter. How long will that take? Few days, maybe a week. Depends on how fast we can get copies of official records. Robert will be looking for us. Let him look. He won't find you. And Mrs. Hartwell, you need to prepare yourself. When this goes public, when we expose what he's done, it's going to get ugly. People who thought they knew him are going to defend him. They're going to question why you stayed, why you didn't report it sooner. Margaret has already thought about this, has already prepared herself for the judgment. Let them question. I know the truth. Rebecca knows the truth. That's enough. After the call, she sits with her coffee and thinks about the next step, confronting Robert, standing in front of him and telling him out loud in front of witnesses what he's done. The thought terrifies her, but it also feels necessary, like something she has to do to fully break free. Rebecca wheels herself into the kitchen. She's getting better at maneuvering the new wheelchair. It's lighter than her old one, easier to control. Morning, Mom. Morning. How are the ribs? Painful, but Carol says they're healing clean. Margaret pours her daughter coffee. Becca, I need to ask you something. Okay. When we confront your father, when we make this public, do you want to be there? You don't have to. You can stay here, stay safe. But if you want to face him to tell him what he did to you, I'll make sure you can. Rebecca is quiet for a long time. I don't know if I'm brave enough. You don't have to be brave. You just have to be there, Mom. I'll do the talking if you want. But Becca, he spent 42 years making us feel small, making us feel like we deserved what he did. And I think maybe facing him and showing him we're not small anymore, that might be important. Will it change anything? Will it make him sorry? No, men like your father don't feel sorry, but it's not about him. It's about us. It's about looking him in the eye and taking back the power he stole. Rebecca nods slowly. Then yes, I want to be there. I want to see his face when he realizes he lost. They spend the rest of Sunday in the farmhouse. Carol comes by twice, checks Rebecca's vitals, changes her bandages, brings groceries that Anvil paid for, stays to make them lunch. How are you both holding up? Carol asks while slicing tomatoes. Terrified, Margaret admits. Good. Fear means you're alive, means you're feeling things instead of numbing yourself to survive. That's progress. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like I'm going to fly apart. Carol sets down the knife and looks at Margaret directly. You've been holding yourself together with silence for 42 years. Now that you've stopped being quiet, everything you've been suppressing is going to come up. The fear, the anger, the grief, all of it. Let it come. Don't push it back down. What if I can't handle it? Then you'll break, and then you'll heal. That's how it works. That night, Margaret lies in bed and lets herself feel everything she's been pushing down. The fear of Robert finding her. The guilt over Rebecca's abuse. The rage at 42 years lost. The grief for the woman she could have been. She cries until her throat is raw and her eyes are swollen and she has nothing left inside. And then, exhausted and empty, she falls asleep. Monday morning, Anvil calls at 9. We need to talk about the confrontation. When, where, how. Margaret sits up in bed. I've been thinking about that. And I want it public. I want witnesses. I don't want this to be something that happens behind closed doors that people can deny later. You're talking about a town hall situation. Yes. Anvil is quiet for a moment. That's brave, also dangerous. Your husband will have supporters there, people who will defend him. I know, but I also know that if I confront him privately, he'll twist it. He'll make me look crazy. He'll use his connections to bury it. But if it's public, if there are hundreds of witnesses, he can't make it disappear. When this week, before I lose my nerve, I'll make it happen. There's a community center that rents space. We can book it for a public forum. Call it a town discussion about domestic violence or something. Get people there under neutral pretenses. He'll know it's about him. Let him know. Let him sweat. Give him a few days to worry about what's coming. Margaret thinks about Robert pacing their empty house, calling her phone over and over, realizing he's lost control. Do it, she says. Tuesday, the day Robert thinks he's picking Rebecca up from the hospital. Margaret imagines him driving there confident and in control, imagines the moment he's told she was released days ago, imagines his rage. She doesn't have to imagine long. Her phone rings at 2:17 p.m. Robert, she answers. Where is she? He's screaming now. No more calm veneer, pure rage. She's safe. The hospital said she was released Saturday. You took her Saturday. Where is my daughter, Margaret? Our daughter, and she's with me. I will find you. I will find both of you. And when I do, when you do what? You'll beat us, threaten us, kill us, Robert. I have evidence of all of it. Every time you hit me, every time you hurt Rebecca, every single thing you have done for 42 years. You're bluffing. Am I Dr. Voss performed a rape kit on Rebecca? Your DNA is on file now. The state police have it. She can hear his breathing ragged and harsh. You're going to destroy me. No, Robert. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Margaret, please. We can fix this. Come home. We'll talk. We'll work it out. I'll get help. I'll change. Begging. The begging is almost worse than the threats. Because part of her, the part that's been conditioned for 42 years, wants to believe him. How many times have you said that? How many times did you promise to change? This time is different. You're right, it is different, because this time I'm not coming back. She hangs up. Her hands are steady this time. Wednesday. Anvil comes to the farmhouse with papers. Town hall is scheduled for Friday night, 7 p.m. Community Center. We've already got local media interested. Advertise it as a forum on domestic violence awareness. Will people come? They'll come. Your husband is well known. People are already talking, wondering where you are, where Rebecca is. The rumor mill is churning. Margaret looks at the papers, at the date and time that will change everything. I need to prepare what I'm going to say. Don't script it. Speak from the heart. Tell your truth. That's all you need. What if I freeze? What if I can't do it? Anvil sits down across from her. Then we'll be there, all of us. You won't be alone. Rebecca wheels into the room. I want to speak too. Both Margaret and Anvil turn to look at her. Becca, you don't have to, Margaret starts. I know I don't have to. I want to. I need to. I need to tell everyone what he did to me. Not just the hitting, all of it. Margaret's heart breaks and swells at the same time. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Thursday, Margaret practices in front of the bathroom mirror. My name is Margaret Hartwell. I'm 73 years old. For 42 years, my husband beat me, beat our daughter, made us believe we deserved it, made us believe no one would help us if we asked. Her voice shakes. She tries again. My name is Margaret Hartwell. My husband says we must stay quiet. I stayed quiet for 15,442 days. Today is day 15,443, and I'm not quiet anymore. Better, stronger. She practices for 3 hours. Rebecca listens from the doorway, offering suggestions, encouragement. Mom, you need to look at him when you speak. Don't look at the crowd. Look at him. Make him see you. I don't know if I can. Yes, you can. You've looked at him every day for 42 years. This time, make him really see you. That night, Margaret barely sleeps. Tomorrow she faces Robert in front of the entire town. Tomorrow she speaks her truth out loud where everyone can hear it. Tomorrow she stops being quiet. Friday arrives gray and cold. Margaret stands in front of the farmhouse mirror and barely recognizes herself. She's lost weight. Her eyes look different, harder maybe, or just more awake. She dresses carefully, not the floral blouses Robert approved. She borrows jeans from Carol and a sweater that's soft and blue and nothing Robert would have allowed. Rebecca is ready by 5. Dressed hair, combed, spine straight, despite the pain in her ribs. You ready? Margaret asks. No, no. They look at each other and laugh. Nervous, terrified laughter, but laughter nonetheless. Anvil arrives at 6 with Wrench, Dodge, and Doc. They load Rebecca's wheelchair into the truck bed, help her into the back seat. Whatever happens tonight, Anvil says, you're not alone. Remember that. The community center parking lot is full. Margaret stares at all the cars, all the people walking inside, and feels her courage waver. I can't do this. Yes, you can, Rebecca says from the back seat. There are too many people. Good, let them all hear it. They park, unload Rebecca. Margaret pushes her daughter's wheelchair toward the building and feels like she's walking toward an execution. Inside the room is packed. 400 people maybe. More. Chairs in rows facing a small stage. Cameras from local news stations. Reporters with notepads. And there in the third row, sitting with perfect posture and a calm expression, is Robert. He sees her. Their eyes meet across the crowded room. He smiles. Margaret's knees almost buckle. She grips Rebecca's wheelchair handles to stay upright. He's here, she whispers. We knew he would be, Anvil says quietly. Let him watch. Let him see what's coming. They find seats in the front row. The bikers arrange themselves around Margaret and Rebecca, a protective wall of leather and muscle. The moderator takes the stage, a woman from the county health department. She talks about domestic violence statistics, about the importance of speaking up, about community resources. Margaret doesn't hear any of it. She's staring at her hands at the wedding ring she's still wearing after 42 years. She pulls it off, drops it in her purse. The moderator is saying something about personal testimonies, about brave individuals who've agreed to share their stories. Our first speaker tonight is Margaret Hartwell. The room goes quiet. Everyone knows that name. Everyone knows Robert Hartwell, model citizen pillar of the community. Margaret stands, her legs shake. Rebecca grabs her hand. You can do this, Mom. Margaret walks to the stage, climbs the 3 steps, stands behind the podium, looks out at 400 faces staring back at her. And then she looks at Robert. He's still smiling, still confident, still certain he can control this narrative the way he's controlled everything else. Margaret takes a breath. My name is Margaret Hartwell, she says into the microphone. Her voice echoes through the room. I'm 73 years old, and for 42 years my husband has been beating me. The room erupts, but Margaret isn't finished. She's just getting started. The noise in the community center swells like a wave. Gasps, whispers, shocked exclamations. Margaret grips the podium with both hands and waits for the room to quiet. She doesn't take her eyes off Robert. His smile has frozen on his face. Not quite gone, but cracking at the edges. For 42 years, Margaret continues, her voice stronger now. I told myself I was staying for my daughter, that leaving would be worse, that silence was the same thing as survival. She pauses, breathes. I was wrong. Someone in the back coughs, a chair scrapes, the news cameras are rolling. Margaret can see the red lights blinking. My husband is Robert Hartwell. Many of you know him. He's worked at Millbrook Factory for 30 years. He volunteers at church fundraisers. He's been Employee of the Year 4 times. He looks like someone's kindly grandfather. Margaret's hands shake, but her voice doesn't. He's also beaten me so badly I've been hospitalized 11 times. Broken my wrist, my collarbone, given me 3 concussions, more bruises than I can count. And every single time I told the doctors I fell, I lied, because that's what he taught me to do. Robert stands. His voice carries across the room, calm and reasonable. Margaret, you're not well. Everyone here knows you've had episodes. This is clearly one of them. Let's go home and... Sit down, Robert. The sharpness in her voice surprises even her. I'm not done talking, and you're going to listen for once. A ripple goes through the crowd. Robert Hartwell being told what to do by his wife. It's unthinkable. He sits, but his jaw's tight. His hands are fists. Margaret pulls out a manila folder from her purse, opens it, takes out the first photograph. This was taken in March of 2019. You can see the bruises on my arms, my neck, my face. Robert gave me these because I accidentally burned dinner. She holds up the photo. The cameras zoom in. Another photo. October 2020, broken wrist. Robert twisted it until the bone snapped because I questioned where he'd been the night before. Another. June 2021, black eye, split lip. I suggested we see a marriage counselor. She goes through 15 photos. The room is silent except for the sound of paper rustling. I have 73 total, 73 photographs documenting what my husband has done to me over the past 15 years. Before that, I didn't think to document. I just survived. Margaret sets down the photos and looks directly at Robert. But it wasn't just me, was it, Robert? His face drains of color. Tell them what you did to our daughter. Margaret, don't. Tell them how you pushed Rebecca down the stairs when she was 12 years old because she tried to stop you from choking me. Tell them how she's been in a wheelchair for 30 years because of you. The crowd erupts again, louder this time. Angry, Robert stands. That's a lie, Rebecca fell. It was an accident. Sit down, Dad. Rebecca's voice cuts through the noise. She's wheeling herself toward the stage, Anvil helping to clear a path. Robert stares at his daughter like he's seeing a ghost. Rebecca reaches the ramp at the side of the stage, wheels herself up, positions herself next to her mother. I didn't fall, Rebecca says into the microphone. Her voice is steady, clear. You pushed me. I was 12 years old. I watched you choking my mother, and I tried to stop you. You grabbed me and threw me down the stairs. Both of you, this is a conspiracy to destroy me. I've never. Your DNA says otherwise. Dr. Helena Voss stands in the back of the room. She walks forward, doctor's coat and identification badge visible. I'm Dr. Helena Voss from Mercy General Hospital. I performed a sexual assault examination on Rebecca Hartwell last Saturday. The DNA evidence recovered was a match to Robert Hartwell. I filed a report with the state police. It's no longer alleged abuse. It's documented, proven. The room explodes. People standing, shouting, some at Robert, some at Margaret and Rebecca, some at each other. Robert is screaming now, pointing at Margaret. She's lying. She's a sick woman. I've been trying to get her help for years. Everyone here knows she's unstable. Then explain this. Anvil walks to the front carrying a box. He sets it on a table beside the stage and pulls out file folders. Financial records from Millbrook factory, showing that Robert Hartwell has embezzled $340,000 over the past 12 years. Falsified invoices, offshore accounts, the whole thing. He pulls out more papers. Emails between Robert Hartwell and Denise Reynolds, his 24-year-old girlfriend. He's been maintaining a second apartment for her for 3 years, telling her he's divorced, that his wife died of cancer. Gasps from the crowd. Someone shouts, "Bobby, is this true?" Robert looks around wildly, his carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. Those are fabricated. They broke into my office. This is a legal search and seizure. We didn't break into anything, Wrench says calmly. Mrs. Hartwell has keys to your office. She gave us permission to photograph documents, completely legal. Sheriff Boyd Holland stands from his seat in the middle rows. Margaret recognizes him. He's been at her house before. Responded to the one time she called police in 1998. He walks to the front. His face is unreadable. Robert Hartwell, I'm going to need you to come with me. On what charges? Based on what evidence? The ravings of a mentally ill woman. Sheriff Holland pulls out handcuffs. Based on a sexual assault report filed by Dr. Voss with DNA evidence. Based on financial crimes documented in these records. Based on 17 hospital visits by your daughter over 12 years, all showing injury patterns consistent with assault. He steps closer to Robert. And based on the fact that I've known something was wrong in your house for 20 years, and I did nothing about it. I'm not doing nothing anymore. Robert backs away. You can't arrest me. I know people. Judge Blackwood, the deputy chief, Judge Blackwood recused himself from this case an hour ago, Holland says, and the deputy chief is currently being investigated for his connection to you. Turns out, looking the other way from abuse because someone's your golf buddy is frowned upon. He grabs Robert's arm. Robert tries to pull away. Don't touch me. I'm a respected member of this community. You can't treat me like a criminal. You are a criminal, Margaret says from the stage. Robert turns to look at her, really look at her. For the first time in 42 years, she's not flinching. You did this, he says. His voice is poison. You destroyed everything. Our marriage, my reputation, my life. You destroyed it all. No, Robert, you destroyed it. I just stopped covering it up. Sheriff Holland snaps the handcuffs on. Robert is still screaming as he's let out. Screaming that Margaret is crazy, that this is a conspiracy, that everyone will regret this. The door closes behind him. The room erupts in noise. Margaret sinks into a chair on the stage. Her legs won't hold her anymore. Rebecca wheels over, takes her mother's hand. We did it, Rebecca whispers. Mom, we actually did it. Margaret looks out at the crowd. Half of them are staring at her with sympathy, admiration. The other half look angry, disgusted. A woman in the fourth row stands and walks out shaking her head. Others follow. Not everyone believes, not everyone will, but enough do, and that's enough. The moderator tries to restore order, tries to continue the forum, but it's chaos. Reporters surging forward, people shouting questions, cameras flashing. Anvil and the other bikers form a barrier around Margaret and Rebecca, create a path to the exit. Time to go, Anvil says gently. They wheel Rebecca down the ramp, Margaret following. The crowd parts for them. Some people reach out, touch Margaret's arm, whisper, "I believe you," or "You're so brave." Others glare. One man spits, "You destroyed a good man's life." Margaret keeps walking. Outside, the November air is cold and clean. Margaret breathes it in deeply. Free air. Air that doesn't smell like fear. They load into Anvil's truck, pull out of the parking lot as more people stream out of the community center, still arguing, still processing. "You okay?" Anvil asks, looking at Margaret in the rearview mirror. "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow." Back at the farmhouse, they sit in the living room. Rebecca in her wheelchair, Margaret on the couch. The bikers scattered around the room like guardian angels in leather. No one speaks for a long time. Finally, Rebecca laughs. It starts small and grows bigger, slightly hysterical. "We actually did that. We stood in front of 400 people and told the truth." Margaret starts laughing too, then crying, then both at once. Anvil brings them water. "Emotional release," he says. "Let it out. You've been holding it in for decades." They cry and laugh until they're exhausted, until there's nothing left. "What happens now?" Margaret asks finally. "Now we wait," Anvil says. "Robert's been arrested. He'll be arraigned probably Monday. His lawyer will try for bail, but with the DNA evidence and the flight risk, I doubt he'll get it. And then there's a trial. Could take months. You'll both have to testify. It won't be easy. Will we have to see him? In court, yes, but he can't hurt you anymore. The law is on your side now." Margaret nods. She's exhausted, bone deep, soul tired, exhausted. But she's free. The weekend passes in a blur. News stations run the story. Local man arrested on abuse embezzlement charges. Margaret's face is on the television. So is Rebecca's. So is Robert's, a mugshot from Friday night, his face twisted with rage. The phone at the farmhouse rings constantly. Reporters wanting interviews. Old friends Margaret hasn't heard from in years. Some supportive, some accusing her of lying. She doesn't answer. On Monday, Robert's arraignment is held. Margaret and Rebecca don't attend, but Anvil does. He calls afterward. "Bail denied. He's being held in county jail until trial. Judge said he's a danger to the community and a flight risk." "How did he look?" Margaret asks, not sure why she wants to know. "Destroyed." His lawyer tried to argue that he's a pillar of the community with no prior record. Prosecutor brought up the medical records, the DNA evidence, the financial crimes. Judge wasn't having it. Margaret feels something settle in her chest, relief maybe, or vindication. Tuesday, a social worker visits the farmhouse. Clara Davies, 50s, kind eyes, seen it all expression. "I'm here to do a wellness check. Make sure you are both safe, have what you need." She interviews Margaret, then Rebecca separately. Checks the living conditions. Talks to Carol, the nurse. "You've built a good support system," she tells Margaret. "That's important. A lot of survivors isolate themselves after disclosure. You're going to need people." "I'm learning that." Clara hands her a business card. "There's a support group, women who've left abusive relationships. Meets Thursday nights at the community center. Different room than where you spoke Friday." Margaret takes the card. "I'll think about it." Think fast. Healing doesn't wait. Wednesday. Margaret wakes to find Rebecca crying in her room. "What's wrong? Are you in pain?" "No, yes, I don't know." Rebecca wipes her eyes. "I keep thinking about him in jail. And part of me feels good about it, like justice, but another part feels guilty, like I put him there, like this is my fault somehow." Margaret sits on the edge of the bed. "That's what he taught you to feel. Guilt, like his actions were your responsibility." "I know that in my head, but my heart doesn't believe it yet." "Then we teach your heart, every day, until it catches up with your head." They sit together in silence. "Mom, what are we going to do after the trial, after everything? What's our life going to look like?" Margaret realizes she has no idea. For 42 years, her life was defined by Robert, by survival, by fear. Now that he's gone, she doesn't know who she is or what she wants. "I don't know, baby. I guess we figure it out together." Thursday night, Margaret goes to the support group. Rebecca encourages her. "You need to be around people who understand." The community center feels different now, less terrifying, more familiar. The meeting is in a small room on the second floor. 8 women sitting in a circle, ages ranging from 20s to 70s, all survivors. A woman in her 60s leads the group. I'm Patricia. I left my husband 15 years ago. Hardest thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did. They go around the circle, each woman sharing her story, how long she stayed, how she left, what healing looks like. When it's Margaret's turn, she says simply, I'm Margaret. I left after 42 years. I'm 73 years old, and I'm still learning what freedom feels like. A woman across the circle, maybe 40, speaks up. 42 years. How did you survive that long? I don't know if I did survive. I think I died somewhere along the way, and I'm just now learning to live again. The women nod. They understand. After the meeting, Patricia pulls Margaret aside. You did a brave thing last Friday. A lot of women in this room saw you speak up. It gave them courage. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You know that now. Margaret drives home to the farmhouse thinking about courage, about how she always thought courage was big, dramatic, obvious. But really it's small. It's getting up every morning when you want to hide. It's telling your truth when your voice shakes. It's choosing to live instead of just survive. 3 weeks later, Margaret gets a call from the prosecutor's office. Assistant DA named Marcus Wright. Mrs. Hartwell, I wanted to update you on the case. Robert Hartwell has been formally charged with 17 counts, including assault, sexual assault, embezzlement, fraud, and witness intimidation. When's the trial? We're aiming for March, 3 months from now. I need to prepare you both for what that's going to involve. You'll have to testify. His lawyer will cross-examine you. It won't be pleasant. Will he be there in the courtroom? Yes, you'll have to face him. Margaret's stomach turns. Okay. What do we need to do to prepare? I'll need to meet with you and Rebecca multiple times. Go over your testimony. Prepare you for the defense's tactics. They're going to try to discredit you, make you seem unstable, vindictive. Let them try. Over the next weeks, Margaret and Rebecca work with the prosecutor, rehearsing testimony, going over every detail of 42 years of abuse. It's exhausting, traumatic, like living through it all again, but necessary. Christmas comes. Margaret and Rebecca spend it at the farmhouse. Anvil and the other bikers bring a tree decorations presents. It's the first Christmas in 42 years that Margaret doesn't spend in fear. They cook dinner together. Nothing fancy. Just food made with love instead of obligation. Rebecca opens a present from Wrench. It's a photo album. Inside are pictures of her and Margaret from the past month. Laughing, smiling, living. When did you take these? Rebecca asked. You weren't paying attention. Too busy healing. Margaret looks at the photos, at herself. She looks different, lighter, younger somehow, despite being 73. She looks free. On New Year's Eve, they stay up until midnight. Watch the ball drop on television. When the clock strikes 12, Margaret makes a resolution. This year I'm going to learn who I am. Not Robert's wife, not just Rebecca's mother. Me, Margaret Hartwell, whoever that is. Rebecca raises her glass of sparkling cider. To becoming ourselves. They clink glasses. January passes in preparation. February brings anxiety. The trial is coming. Margaret can feel it approaching like a storm. She practices her testimony until she can recite it in her sleep. Practices staying calm under hostile questioning. Practices looking at Robert without flinching. The prosecutor warns her. His lawyer is good. Arthur Chambers. He'll try to rattle you, make you angry or scared or confused. You have to stay steady. I've dealt with Robert for 42 years. I can handle his lawyer. But can she? Margaret isn't sure. The night before the trial, Margaret can't sleep. She sits on the porch of the farmhouse at 2 in the morning, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. Anvil's truck pulls up. He gets out, joins her on the porch. Couldn't sleep either, he asks. Too nervous. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. They sit in silence for a while. Why did you help me? Margaret asks. You didn't know me. Didn't owe me anything. Why risk it? Anvil is quiet for a long moment. My mother was killed by my stepfather when I was 15. Beat her to death in our kitchen while I was at school. When I came home, she was already dead. Margaret's breath catches. She never asked for help, never told anyone what was happening. I think she thought she was protecting me by staying quiet, but her silence got her killed. He looks at Margaret. When you walked into Riley's that day, shaking so hard you could barely speak, I saw my mother. And I thought maybe I can't save her, but I can save you. I can make sure at least one woman doesn't die staying silent. Margaret's eyes fill with tears. I'm sorry about your mother. Me too, every day. But helping Rebecca, it helps me too. Gives me purpose. Gives her death meaning. They sit together until the sun rises. Then Anvil drives Margaret to the courthouse. The trial begins on March 1st. The courtroom is packed. Media, spectators, Robert's supporters, Margaret and Rebecca's supporters. Robert sits at the defense table in a suit, clean-shaven, looking like the man everyone thought they knew. He doesn't look at Margaret when she enters. The jury is selected. 8 women, 4 men. Margaret studies their faces, trying to read which ones might believe her. Opening statements begin. The prosecutor lays out the case methodically. 42 years of abuse, medical evidence, financial crimes, DNA proof of sexual assault. Then Robert's lawyer stands. Arthur Chambers, silver-haired, expensive suit voice like warm honey. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're going to hear a lot of accusations over the next few weeks. Terrible accusations against my client, a man who has served this community faithfully for decades. But I ask you to remember something. Accusations are not facts. Margaret Hartwell is a 73-year-old woman with documented mental health issues. She's vindictive, angry, looking to destroy the man who devoted his life to caring for her. Margaret's hands clench. Rebecca, sitting beside her in the gallery, takes one hand and squeezes. As for the financial crimes, my client was managing accounts he had access to. Any irregularities or bookkeeping errors, not theft. And as for the charges involving his daughter, well, you'll hear testimony from Rebecca Hartwell, a woman who has been isolated, controlled, and possibly coached by her mother and by the motorcycle gang that has taken them in. The prosecutor objects. The judge sustains it. But the damage is done. The seed of doubt is planted. Day 1 of testimony begins. The prosecutor calls Dr. Voss. She walks through the sexual assault examination. The DNA evidence. The injuries consistent with rape. She's professional, thorough, unshakable. Chambers cross-examines her. Doctor, Voss, isn't it true that DNA evidence only proves sexual contact occurred, not that it was non-consensual? In cases of disabled individuals, particularly those living with their abuser, consent is questionable at best. But you can't prove it was rape, can you? You can only prove it happened. The pattern of injuries, the victim's statement, the power dynamic all suggest assault. Suggest, not prove. And so it goes, back and forth. Chambers chipping away at certainty. Day 2, the prosecutor calls Sheriff Holland. He testifies about responding to the Hartwell house in 1998, about seeing Margaret's injuries, about Robert's calm explanation that she'd fallen. And you believed him, the prosecutor asks. Holland looks ashamed. I did. I shouldn't have, but I did. Why? Because he was Robert Hartwell, respected, well-liked, and she was so quiet, so submissive. I thought if it was really that bad, she'd fight back. I was wrong. Silence doesn't mean consent, it means fear. Chambers doesn't cross-examine. Smart move. Holland's regret is helping the defense by showing how believable Robert was. Day 3. Rebecca testifies. Margaret watches her daughter wheel to the witness stand, watches the bailiff swear her in, watches her face Robert for the first time since his arrest. Rebecca doesn't flinch. The prosecutor guides her through her testimony gently. The abuse she witnessed as a child, the stairs, the wheelchair, the nighttime visits. Rebecca's voice is steady, clear. She describes in detail what Robert did to her, how often, for how many years. The jury looks sick. Some women are crying. Then Chambers stands for cross-examination. Miss Hartwell, you've been living with a motorcycle gang for the past 4 months, correct? I've been living in a safe house provided by people who helped my mother and me escape. People who have criminal records. Or a woman who's been coached by her mother to make false accusations. Objection. Sustained, Mr. Chambers, be careful. But again, the seed is planted. Day 4, Margaret takes the stand. She's wearing a simple blue dress, no makeup covering anything. Every scar, every fading bruise visible. The prosecutor walks her through it all. The first time Robert hit her, the escalation, the broken bones, the hospital visits, the photographs. Margaret's voice shakes, but she doesn't stop. She tells it all. Then comes the cross-examination. Chambers approaches her with a sympathetic smile. Mrs. Hartwell, you've been through a terrible ordeal. I can see that. But I have to ask, why stay for 42 years? Why not leave? I was afraid. Of what? Of him killing me, of him taking Rebecca, of being homeless, penniless, alone. But you had family, didn't you? Friends, why not go to them? I did. They didn't believe me. Or they told me marriage requires sacrifice to work it out. Or perhaps they knew you'd had mental health struggles. Depression, anxiety. Perhaps they thought you were exaggerating. Objection assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained. Chambers pulls out papers. Mrs. Hartwell, isn't it true you were prescribed antidepressants in 2005? Yes. And anti-anxiety medication in 2012? Yes. And isn't it true that in 2007 you attempted suicide? Margaret's throat closes. Yes. So you've had significant mental health issues for years, issues that might cause you to misremember events, to distort reality. I remember every hit, every broken bone, every threat. Mental illness doesn't make me a liar. But it does make you unreliable, doesn't it? Margaret looks at him directly. What's unreliable is a system that medicated me instead of protecting me. That told me I was sick instead of believing I was being abused. The courtroom is silent. Chambers tries again. Mrs. Hartwell, you've stated my client embezzled money. Yet you benefited from that money, didn't you? The house you lived in, the car, you drove, the lifestyle you enjoyed. I didn't enjoy anything. I survived. But you stayed for 42 years. You could have left at any time. Could I? With no money, no job skills, no support system? Where exactly would I have gone? Anywhere. If it was really that bad, you would have left. Margaret stands. The bailiff moves forward, but she's not going anywhere. She's just done sitting. I walked 3 miles in shoes that gave me blisters to ask strangers for help. I stood in front of 400 people and told my truth. I am sitting here now looking at my abuser telling a room full of people what he did to me for 42 years. Do not tell me I wouldn't have left. I left the moment I found the courage. And courage doesn't come on anyone's timeline but your own. The judge bangs the gavel. Mrs. Hartwell, please sit down. She sits, but she's made her point. The trial continues for 2 more weeks. Witnesses testify. The embezzlement evidence is presented. Financial experts, character witnesses for both sides. Some people testify that Robert was kind, generous, wonderful. Others testify that they suspected something was wrong, but said nothing. Lorraine Webb testifies via video deposition recorded before she died in January. Her testimony is powerful. I heard Margaret scream for 33 years. I did nothing. I'm dying with that regret. Don't let my silence be for nothing. Believe her. Finally, closing arguments. The prosecutor is thorough. This isn't a case of he said, she said. This is a case with DEA, NAMA evidence, medical records, financial documents, and testimony from multiple witnesses. Robert Hartwell is a man who spent 42 years terrorizing his family while playing the role of model citizen. Don't let him continue to hide behind that mask. Then Chambers stands. Reasonable doubt, that's all you need. Is it possible Margaret Hartwell is telling the truth? Sure. Is it also possible she's a mentally ill woman with an agenda? Also, yes. Impossibility isn't proof. The prosecution hasn't proven beyond reasonable doubt that my client committed these crimes. And in America, we don't convict people on possibilities. The jury deliberates for 3 days. Margaret and Rebecca wait at the farmhouse. They don't talk much, just sit together, holding hands, waiting. On day 3, the call comes. Verdict reached. They drive to the courthouse, pack into the courtroom. Margaret's heart pounds so hard she thinks it might break through her ribs. The jury files in. Margaret tries to read their faces. Can't. The judge asks, has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of assault in the first degree, how do you find guilty? Margaret's vision blurs. On the charge of sexual assault, guilty. Rebecca grips her hands so tight it hurts. On the charge of embezzlement, guilty. The verdicts continue. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 39 counts total. Guilty on 37 of them. Robert sits motionless at the defense table. His lawyer is already preparing an appeal. Sentencing is set for 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks pass in a daze. Margaret and Rebecca process what happened. They won. The system worked. Justice was served. It doesn't feel real. Sentencing day arrives. The judge reads through the counts, assigns years to each one. Robert Hartwell, you are hereby sentenced to 35 years in the state penitentiary. Given your age, this is effectively a life sentence. You will be eligible for parole in 20 years, at which time you'll be 88 years old. The gavel comes down. Robert is led away in handcuffs. He doesn't look at Margaret, doesn't look at Rebecca, just stares straight ahead as he's taken back to jail. Margaret watches him go, feels nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness where fear used to live. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm. Margaret reads a prepared statement. For 42 years, I stayed silent because I thought silence would keep me safe. It didn't. Silence protected my abuser and imprisoned me. To anyone experiencing abuse, I want you to know that speaking up is terrifying. But staying silent is worse. It's never too late to use your voice. I'm 73 years old. I found mine. You can find yours too. She doesn't take questions, just walks to Anvil's truck and leaves. 6 months later, Margaret stands in front of a different community center, different town. She's been asked to speak about her experience, to help other survivors find courage. She's nervous but not terrified. There's a difference. Rebecca is with her, walking with a cane now. Physical therapy helped her regain some mobility. Not full walking, but standing a few steps. More than the doctors thought possible. You ready, Mom? Getting there? They enter together. The room is full of women, young and old, all survivors, all looking for hope. Margaret takes the microphone. My name is Margaret Hartwell. I'm 74 years old. 18 months ago, I was a woman who hadn't made a decision for herself in 42 years. Today, I run a foundation called Break the Quiet. We help women over 60 leave abusive relationships. We provide safe housing, legal aid, therapy support. She pauses. People ask me how I survived 42 years. The truth is, I didn't survive. I endured. I existed. I waited to die. Survival is what I'm doing now. Living is what I'm learning now. The women lean forward, listening. I'm not going to tell you leaving is easy. It's not. I'm not going to tell you everyone will believe you. They won't. I'm not going to tell you the system will protect you immediately. It might not. She looks at each woman. But I will tell you this. You deserve better than bruises. You deserve better than fear. You deserve better than silence. And you deserve to take up space in this world without asking permission. After the speech, women line up to talk to her, to share their stories, to ask for help. Margaret listens to each one, gives them the number for Break the Quiet, tells them about safe houses, about legal resources, about support groups. One woman, 71 years old, married for 48 years, whispers, "Is it too late for me?" Margaret takes her hand. I left at 73. It's never too late. That evening, Margaret and Rebecca have dinner at the farmhouse. It's still their home base, though Margaret has her own apartment now in town, learning to live alone, learning to be independent. Mom, I got accepted to graduate school. Margaret looks up. What? Online program, social work. I want to help people like us, disabled survivors, people the system forgets. Pride swells in Margaret's chest. Becca, that's wonderful. I'm scared, though. What if I can't handle it? What if you can? What if you're amazing at it? What if you change lives? Rebecca smiles. When did you become an optimist? When I realized pessimism was just another form of fear, and I'm done being afraid. They eat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from understanding each other, from surviving together, from healing together. Later, Margaret drives back to her apartment, her own space, her own rules, her own life. She makes tea, sits on her small balcony, watches the stars. Her phone rings. Unknown number. She almost doesn't answer, then does. Is this Margaret Hartwell? Yes. My name is Dolores. I'm 68. I saw you speak tonight. You said it's never too late. It's not. My husband says I must stay quiet. Margaret's heart aches. You don't have to anymore. I'm scared. I know, but Dolores, let me tell you something. I spent 15,439 days being scared, and then I spent one day being brave. Just one. And that one day changed everything. What if I can't do it? Then try again tomorrow and the next day. Until you can, I'll help you. We'll help you. She gives Dolores the number for Break the Quiet, tells her about the safe houses, about the support groups, about the fact that she's not alone. When Margaret hangs up, she sits in the dark and thinks about voices, about how hers was silent for so long, and how now it's helping others find theirs. She thinks about Robert in prison, probably still telling anyone who'll listen that he's innocent, that Margaret is crazy, that he was the victim. She doesn't care anymore. His voice doesn't matter. Hers does. 1 year later, Margaret celebrates her 75th birthday at Riley's Roadhouse, surrounded by the bikers who saved her life, by Rebecca now thriving in graduate school, by the women she's helped through Break the Quiet, by the life she's built from ruins. Anvil raises a glass. To Margaret, who walked through our door terrified and walked out brave. I was always brave, Margaret says. I just forgot for a while. They toast, laugh, tell stories. Later, Rebecca pulls her mother aside. I have something for you. She hands Margaret a book. A real book published with a cover and everything. The title reads, The Echo of Silence, A Daughter's Story. You wrote a book about us, about what we survived, about what we learned. I wanted people to know that abuse doesn't end when you leave, that healing is ongoing, that family can rebuild. Margaret flips through pages, sees her story, Rebecca's story, their story in print. It's dedicated to you, Rebecca says, to the woman who taught me that it's never too late to use your voice. Margaret pulls her daughter into a hug. They hold each other and cry and laugh and breathe. I'm proud of you, baby. I'm proud of us, Mom. That night, Margaret lies in her bed in her apartment that smells like lavender and freedom. She thinks about the journey, about where she was and where she is. She thinks about the Margaret from 2 years ago, standing in front of a mirror covering bruises, counting days like a prisoner, believing that silence was safety. She wishes she could tell that Margaret what's coming, that she'll find courage, that she'll speak up, that she'll survive. But maybe that Margaret had to walk her own path, had to count every single one of those 15,439 days until she reached the one where everything changed. Margaret picks up her journal. She's kept one since leaving, writing down thoughts, memories, progress. She writes day 730 of freedom. Some days are still hard. Some days I'm still scared, but every day I choose to be loud instead of quiet. Every day I choose to live instead of just survive. Every day I choose me. She closes the journal, turns off the light, sleeps without fear. And somewhere in a prison, 2 states over, Robert Hartwell sits in a cell and realizes that the woman he spent 42 years silencing has become louder than he ever was. That the daughter he broke has become stronger than he ever could be. That the life he tried to control has moved on without him. And he's the one who's silent now. Margaret Hartwell was quiet for 15,439 days. She's been speaking for 730 days, and she's never going to stop.